service or a program running on the server end that can be exposed to multiple clients or consumers. They can invoke that service and get the data. So as I told you, in RESTful web service, the main thing is the resources. So what are resources? The data entities. Okay. And what are actions? Like get, post, okay, put, delete. These are the actions. Okay, these are your HTTP methods. Now, what is the main thing? Say, for example, say your resource is a data entity. Okay, for example, I want to actually write services related to student. So your student is resource. Student is resource. Okay, which is the data entity. Right? Now there are various actions on the student, right? So we can read the student, we can create the student, we can update the student, right? So there are various actions on student entity or student resource. So create student. Okay. Next is read student data. Right. Next, update student data. And then next is delete student data. These are various actions. Okay. Now, each action is associated with one HTTP method. Okay. So each action. So this is associated with HTTP post method. Okay. This is associated with HTTP get method. Right. Okay. So this is associated with the HTTP put method, update data. Okay. HTTP put method. And this is associated with HTTP delete method. Right? Right? Now if you see here, now each of these a client has to do, right? So each of these are your actions on the resource, and each action on this resource is represented by an URI. Each action on the resource is represented by an URI. Represented by an URI. You know what is URI? URI is like it is a form of an URL actually. Okay. Now client will invoke this URI. Client will invoke this URI so that the respective action on that resource will take place. So that means, suppose if I have REST. So that means now this is your RESTful web services layer. So in this, I'll be writing different URIs. Okay. So URI means like a URL. It is a form of an URL. So one URI is like your get mapping /students. Right? Now client, what it will do, your client, whoever wants to call, they will call the URI. I mean, URI is a combination of, if you say, it's a combination of protocol. It's a combination of protocol and the path, right? I mean, it is a combination of the protocol, the server, host name, and the path, right? Now, what is your host name? Your host name is your IP address of this, or your host name of this server, and your path is this one. Suppose now client wants to read students, means it will call now HTTPS some host name /students, right? And it will issue, when client is issuing, it will issue a GET request. It will issue a HTTP GET request. It will issue a GET request, right? Now, when client wants to create some data, now this GET request is what it is doing. It is reading the data. Now this is reading the data. Okay, that means this API, we call this as one API. Okay, this is one API. So what this API will do? This API will connect to the database. The logic present in this API will connect to the database, get the required data, and give the response. Okay, it will read the list of students. Now, another client, what it will do, or the same client, what it will do, it will issue one more request. It will issue one more request, which is post, which is HTTPS host name /students. Okay, /students. So what it is, when you say post, means it is sending some data. It is sending some data to create the student. Say, for example, this is used mostly for a new student creation. Okay, for a new student creation, it will issue this request. Okay, this client can be your Angular, or this client can be your Angular or React.js application, right? So it will issue a post request. So what it will do, now you will have corresponding URI. Okay, each action, see, this is one action, right, which is create action, post mapping students, right? Now you see each action is mapped with one URI. Okay, post mapping students. So again, this is get mapping students. So post, what it will do. Similarly, what will put will do? Put will do. See, post means creating a new student. Put means updating the existing student. But even we can use post also for updating the data. But according to your HTTP methods, you should use put. But the thing is, so many projects will use post also to both for create and update student. Okay, and even delete also we can use post. That means only with post and get we can do everything. Put and delete actually we rarely use. But according to HTTP standards, we have to follow this actually. But so many projects we are not following that. We follow only post and get, because post they can use for both create, update, delete. Okay, that's all. Okay, so each action on the resource is represented by an URI. Okay, this is what we call an API. This is called API or endpoint. Okay. Now, so we are going to see today using Spring REST how we are going to do. Okay, just 1 minute. So how we are going to do. So for that, what we'll do is we'll use actually Spring REST. So Spring REST is built on Spring MVC. In normal MVC, what we have? We have a dispatcher servlet. We have a dispatcher servlet, right? Any request coming to dispatcher servlet, right? Any request coming to dispatcher servlet or any request coming to Spring MVC first will come to dispatcher servlet, and dispatcher servlet now will invoke your controller bean. Will invoke a controller bean. Right? And here we have a request mapping or get mapping, whatever, right? I told you get mapping and post mapping are shortcut for your request mapping, get request and post request. So request mapping, and it will match with one of the URL pattern. It will match with one of the URL pattern, right? It will match with one of the URL pattern. Suppose if I say /data1. So this /data1 will be matching with this, right? And this /data1 will match with this URL pattern. Now this will invoke, and what it will do, this is matched with some method. There will be a method here, right? There will be a method, and the method will return some result, right? It will return a string. Again, the result will be returned back here. Your dispatch servlet, what it will do? Now it will invoke a view corresponding to that method, your JSP view. Right? We have seen that, right? In your normal applications, whatever the result of this method, that name of the JSP also will be the same. And this JSP, what you will set the data in the model, your JSP view can access the model. It will read the model. Okay. Present set in the controller bean and present the result. Right. Fine. This is your normal MVC. Okay. Now in Spring REST, Spring REST also works in Spring MVC only, but the difference is now we have a dispatcher servlet. Now I have a dispatcher servlet. Now any request comes to dispatcher servlet now. Right? Now that will invoke the controller bean. Right? Your controller bean. And here you have a request mapping or get mapping, whatever. Okay. Now this will have some method which does some processing logic. Now once this method returns a result back, okay, this returns a result back, right? Now you know what this result, your dispatch servlet, what it did, the result returned from this. Right? So the result returned from this now will not go to the JSP view. It will directly return that response. Whatever this method is returning the response. Okay. Okay, this result, that result is directly returned here. There is no view like this. So view will be at this place. This will be your client, your Angular or React.js application. Okay, or it can be even any application. Even this can be a Spring MVC application also. Okay, where the Spring MVC where a JSP can call this. I'm just telling. So you can think like this is your RESTful web service there. In RESTful web service there, what will happen? Only it returns the response and present the result. Here, the result is presented at the server end only through JSP. But here the result is presented by another application. So here the result is present. Here the result or response is rendered, or we can say is presented by another application calling the REST API. Right? But here it is not like that. So here the result. So here the result is presented by server side JSP. Okay, server side JSP layer or server side presentation layer. Example JSP. Not only JSP is one example, but there are different JSP in one technology. We have different thing. Time leaf is also there. Time leaf. These are your server side presentation layer. Right? So we are going to use this. Right? So everyone clear with this till now? Any doubts till now? Any doubts? Clear everyone? Till now? Right. Right. So let us now start building one simple RESTful web service. It is easy for you now because you already know MVC framework. Just I'll tell you the difference, only this difference. That's all. Now what I'll do, I'll take the existing one only. Now you see, let me go to your Spring MVC demo only. Now you see, let me take student handler, okay? Let me now take one request mapping. I'll tell just a simple one. Just I'll say simple one, data one, okay? Now I'll just say this one, simple method one. I'll remove all this. I'll just say some data, something like this, okay? Now, if I run this, if I invoke this URL, where it should go? It should go to data.jsp, right? There should be a name with whatever the string you are returning here, there should be a name of the JSP. But but we should not have like that. Now, this should not go to the JSP name. That means this response, whatever response it is coming here, your dispatcher should not send that response to JSP. So directly, whatever the result that is coming here, it should return the result back. So for that, what I'll do is, I'll just say @ response body. I'll tell you what is this, okay? Now, let me now add I'm just adding this application to the Tomcat server. I'm just starting the Tomcat server. Now I'll just say localhost 8080/spring MVC demo1/ I'll say data1. Now you see, whatever the string I am returning here, that is directly coming to this browser. Right? Suppose if I invoke the other URL, okay. If I invoke this, you are getting this, it is going to JSP page. So what is the difference if you see here? This flow. If I type this URL, now this is going to this is matching with this one of the request mapping method. The result is going to your JSP page. Now this is going to your show student registration form.jsp. So this is the first flow. Suppose if I use this, now this is matching. Okay, this URL pattern is matching with this. This URL pattern is matching with this. Right? So this URL pattern is matching with this. And now, if you see the difference between this and this is this one. If you see here, this URL pattern is matching with this, and this is returning to this JSP page. Okay. But here, this URL pattern is matching with this. Along with that, we have response body annotation. And what this annotation will tell is, this doesn't have that one. So what this annotation will tell is, so this will return the response directly to the client or browser. Without going to view. Without going to view. So that means this flow directly the return. So now this is actually the basis. This combination is the basis. Now you can think this is a REST API. Now you can think this is the REST API. So this combination, so this is the foundation for REST API. For Spring REST. Okay. So that means whenever I put any body with response body, now this whatever this string it is returning, now this will directly return to the browser. So that's why I'm able to see this directly. It's not going to a JSP. Otherwise, if there is no response body, if I don't put this annotation here, what will happen? It will go to data.jsp, which is not there, right? You will get an error. See, I'll not put response body here, right? Now, this will go to data.jsp. Is there any data.jsp here in WebINF? There is no data.jsp. You will get an error, you see. Right? See, you are getting data.jsp not found. Right? You are getting data.jsp not found. So because you don't have response body here, and directly it is set into data.jsp, which is not there. So that is the reason. So if you want to return the response directly to the browser, you should put response body here. So what response body? So response body will return the response directly to the browser or client, whoever calling. Okay, here in my example, this browser is client. So response body will return the response directly to browser or client without going to view or JS. In this example, JS. Right? Now this is the foundation. Now like this, now we'll start our Spring REST project. Just 1 minute, I'm getting one call. Hello? Yeah. Are you able to hear me, everyone? Okay. So now we are returning string, but we can return objects, everything from this directly these methods. Now let us now start writing. We'll create one separate project. Okay, though it is working on MVC only, but we'll create a separate project without any views. So let us do that. Right? Let us do that. So what I'll do is just one. So what I'll do is I'll just create file new Maven project. Click on finish. Spring REST demo 1. I'll just change this to right. So sorry, I think I'll delete this. Sorry. Because I have to create with web-based. Let's bring the REST demo 1 com dot. Let me change this to then I'll say right. I'll just create a package, new com dot Spring REST demo 1. Right now, what I'll do now, I'll use the same. Okay, fine. Now what I'll do now, whatever you used in Spring MVC demo, copy the same. Right, web.inf, web.xml, the same thing, same structure. I told you, right, only the difference, that's a view difference is not there. Okay, web app, web.inf. Okay, I'll take this one and I'll copy it. Right, you have Spring config, your web.xml. Only thing is here will not have this one, right? We don't need this view resolver. We don't need. Okay, we don't need JSP part, right? We'll remove this. Right, and web.xml same. Any URL pattern will go to dispatcher servlet, right? Any URL pattern will go to dispatcher servlet. Okay, it will go to dispatcher servlet. Right. So what we'll do now, let me start with one simple controller, new class. I'll say student controller. Okay. Now here I'll say @controller. Right. Okay, I have to add the pom.xml, right? Let me add these dependencies. These dependencies I should add, right? Right, this I should add. Right. So here I'll say @get mapping. Okay. And here I'll say students. Right. Now what I'll do, here I'll say @response body. This is compulsory, okay? Because this will bypass the view. It will not go to your view. Now I'll say public string get students. For now, what I'll do, I'll hard code the data. Afterwards, I'll get the data from the database. I'll say student 1 student 2, student 3. Okay. Right. Now let me now add. I'll add this also. Spring REST demo 1. Now I'll say Spring REST demo 1 / students. Why? Spring REST demo 1 / students. Again, restart. Spring REST demo 1 / students. Why? Okay. Where is the mistake I have done? Anyone can tell? Anyone can tell where is the mistake I have done? This base package I have to change, right? Otherwise, it will not scan for the beans. I give scom.spring MVC demo 1, but it is com dot. This base package I have to change, right? Otherwise, your Spring will not create the beans, right? Your Spring will not create the beans, right? So here I'll say Spring REST demo 1. Otherwise, it will not scan for the component, not create the beans. So you have to give the correct package here. Let me restart here. Now you see, I got this data. So what is happening here? Now, what is happening now? I invoked this students URL, this URL. Now it is going to this method, which is mapping with this method, right? And then this response body. This response body, what it is doing? It is returning the directly the string as a response. There is no view here. There is no JSP view. So directly whatever I give the string, directly it is returning the response. Okay. Now what we'll do is now from now onwards we'll not use this @controller or @response body. Okay, so we'll use one more annotation called REST controller. So this REST controller is equal to @controller plus @response body. That means your REST controller is your child class of your control role. That means it will be like this. So first component, which is your Spring Bean, the main Spring Bean component annotation. Okay, from component, all this your controller. These are also your Spring Beans only. Okay, these are your child annotations of component. Right. So controller. Next is service. 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 And then @repository. Right? This we have seen. Now from @controller, we'll have now @rest controller. From @controller, we'll have the @rest controller. Now this is used only for the REST APIs. Now controller along with response body, if I give, that is equal to your REST control. That means I don't need to use this one from now onwards. Okay. And instead of @controller, I'll say @rest controller. That's all. Directly I'll use @rest controller, and this will be your REST API. Now if I restart the server now, you see you got the same. Right? Everyone clear till now here? Everyone clear till now? Any doubts? Right? See, fine. Now, the difference is, the main difference, you don't have JSPL. Okay, directly we are returning the response back. Right. That means it can return any response. Now it is returning a string response. Even it can return an object also. That means, say I have a class, new class, an entity, student. So the student has properties, student ID, student name. Okay. Student city or student address or something like this. Okay. I'll just generate source, generate getters and setters for this. Right? Right. So student is having this. So now what I'll do now I can create one more API, get mapping. I'll say just a student, okay? And here I'll say public. Now I'll say student. Okay? And I'll say get the student. This returns a student data type. This returns a string, this returns a student. I can create one student object. Okay. Now I'll say student.set student. Set student ID. I'll say some yes100. Student.set student name. Okay, ideally it should get from database, but I'll say Pradeep. Student.set student address. I'll just say Hyderabad. Something like this. And I'll return student here. Okay. Return student. Now let me restart this. Now ideally I'm just returning an object. Okay. Now I'm returning an object from this API. Now you see here. Now I'll say student. Say I got an error, you see. It is telling that no converter found for return value of type this one. This is an object. Earlier it was, see, if it is a string, it is used to return string. String is coming. String return type is whatever the string you are returning, it is returning back. But now I'm returning an object now. So this object, what it does, As I told you yesterday, if you remember yesterday, I told you one thing. So a client do okay REST API, and you have a REST API, right? Now client will invoke a REST API. This is a request. Okay. And your REST API will return back the response back. And what it returns a response, it is a JSON response. JSON response. It is a JSON response. This is a request, JSON request, and this is a JSON response. So why JSON? JSON is your, which is called JavaScript object. It is not a JavaScript. Remember, JSON is like an XML only. I mean, it is an alternative to XML, where this can be understood by any programming language. Say, for example, your client can be your Angular. Your client can be your Angular or React JS. Okay. Your client can be your Angular or React JS, right? And your REST API can be your Spring REST, or that is Java Spring REST, or Python, right? Anything. Now, the communication between the client and this server, these both are two different languages, but they communicate with one universally acceptable data format or data language, which is called JSON. So what will happen now? Now whatever your server sends JSON response, that will be interpreted by client, and it will understand this response, and it will present the data accordingly. Now, suppose you build this REST API with Java Spring REST, for example. Let us think like your REST API is built with Java Spring REST. So what is returning actually in this REST API? An object, right? A Java object. So this is returning a Java object internally. See, this is returning a Java object, right? This is an object. The return type of this API is a Java object type, which is student. But this object, this object, when it comes out and sent to the client, to the browser, this object should be converted to a JSON. That conversion should happen. Okay. So this, whatever the Java object that this API is sending, that means this object, this is a student object. Okay. For string doesn't require. For string, directly the string is returned. String is directly written. For string, not required. But for any custom object, okay, that object should be converted to a JSON response. That means there should be a converter we should handle in REST API. That means in REST API, suppose I'm developing this service layer with Spring REST. Okay. Now I developed actually an API. Okay. An API. Now this is returning a. So this is returning a, right? This is returning some object, right? So this is returning an object. So this is return some student object, okay? Some student object. This is returning a student object. Now there should be a converter. There should be a converter. There should be a converter. There should be a converter which there should be a converter which converts this student object. There should be a converter which converts the student object to a JSON. This is what this converter will do, you know. This will convert student object to JSON. JSON means it is a string only. JSON is nothing but it's a string. It is a string. That means this object is converted to a JSON string, And now this JSON string is returned to your browser, your client. Okay. So this is your JSON string now. JSON response. JSON response. JSON is nothing but string only. Okay. For string response, not required because this is a string and string directly will be matched with JSON string. But here this is an object now. So this object has to be converted to JSON string and then send as a JSON. Now this converter is missing now. In our Spring REST project, this converter is missing. That is the error here. That is the error. So this converter, no converter found. That converter is missing. Now I'll add that converter. See how it will do. To add a converter, very simple. Nothing to do. Go to your pom.xml. Okay. Go to your pom.xml. Right. Now add one library. Add one dependency. That is a converter. So which is called Jackson library. Just select this. So I'll just say com dot faster XML dot Jackson dot core. Right. Next here I'll say Jackson hyphen data bind. Right here I'll say 2.9. That's all. So this dependency right. Okay, this is the dependency which is called Jackson library. So what this will do, you know, this will convert. Just you add, that's all. This will convert. This will convert Java to JSON string and JSON string to Java object. So this library will convert Java object to JSON string and JSON string to Java object. And who does that conversion? I mean, this library is used, but which process in MVC does that? This annotation driven is there, right? This annotation flow, whenever we enable this in our configuration, now this will work with this. This will work with this Jackson library and convert Java object to JSON string. That's all. Internally, that your MVC will take care of this. Now I'll restart this now. I'll restart this. I'll just refresh this. Why? Com dot faster XML dot Jackson dot core. Next Jackson hyphen data bind. Right? And version. So version is 2.9.5. Why it is not converting? Still it is telling no converter. Only this one, that's all. I will restart again. So restart. Okay. It should convert. I added this dependency. Let me update this Maven project. Right. Properties. Okay. I'll just restart this. Now you see. Now you got some, whatever this object is there, right? Whatever this object is there, right? Student object. Now you got that as a JSON string. Okay, with student ID yes 100, with student name Pradeep, right? Student address Hyderabad. You got this structure JSON string with a, this is called JSON string. This is called JSON string. Okay, the object is converted to JSON string. So what I'll do is tomorrow I'm going to explain this as JSON, the JSON structure of the JSON. See, whatever the object, this Java object is converted to a JSON string like this. So tomorrow I'm going to explain the structure of this and how we are going to do some complex JSONs also. This is a simple JSON. This is a simple JSON with 3 attributes. So we'll see some nested JSONs, one JSON under another JSON. So tomorrow I'm going to tell you all this, okay? Everyone understood? So what I have done, just I have added in my pom.xml, this dependency, that's all. So which will convert Java object to JSON. And then, so who does this? This annotation, this element, which will be the main element for Spring MVC Flow, this will work with the Jackson library, and that will convert the student object to JSON and send to the browser. Okay, that means this API returns a student object. Now this converter, whatever you set up the Jackson library, that will convert to your JSON. This converter, we use Jackson library. And convert to JSON response. Any doubts here till now? Any questions?